Irrational Radio.
Create something.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to another Table 13. My name is A Wooden Leg, and above me I've got Mr. Shady Ankle Bottoms and Mr. E of Irrational Radio. All three of us are of Irrational Radio, but I'm sure you knew that already.
We are of it.
Yes, we are of it.
Of it, in it, and to win it.
All up in and around.
All
Yep.
about it.
All about it. So today, as you may have noticed, our topic is bugbears.
Actually, our topic is smarter than your average bugbear.
Right. Smarter than your average bugbear, which is a play on the Yogi Bear.
Is that where that comes
Thing.
from?
Yeah, smarter than your average bear. That's
I didn't
yep.
think we'd have to point it out for
That's-
anybody.
yeah.
It's one of us.
Yep.
I
Yep.
didn't realize it came from Yogi the bear.
It came from Yogi Bear.
Smarter
Yep.
than your
Average bear, boo boo.
Oh my
Mhm.
god.
Gonna get a picnic a basket. Yep. So
He's done, I think.
that's where that came from.
Yeah.
No, I quit.
So we have me and Mystery. Ignore the Shady in the room. He is
Yeah,
left. He's dead to
I'm
us.
I'm only here just viewing.
Just
So-
here so I don't get fined.
So before we can get to the really meat of the episode where we destroy a beloved beloved Dungeons and Dragons monster, we're going to talk about what a bugbear is, because there's a lot of misconception about the bugbear. There's a lot of things being thrown around about bugbears that just frankly aren't true, and
They
we're
just
gonna
wanna love,
don't-
guys.
Right.
They
Like
just wanna
that.
love.
Like the thing he just said.
we're gonna set the record straight.
One of them.
So yeah, bugbears. They are goblinoids. Technically, they're the only goblinoid with hair, which is interesting.
Well, like fur.
Fur. Yeah. Well,
Right, like don't goblins have hair on their head, or do they not?
Yes.
Like,
I think.
canonically.
canonically, no. Canonically,
Hmm.
bugbears are the only goblinoids with hair. So
I'm
if
pretty
you're
sure hobgoblin have hair at least.
look it up.
I'm gonna need you to
That's-
cite your
I'm all
sources.
looking up. Yeah.
I
what's your
yeah.
source?
It's
'Cause I got
That-
pictures of hobgoblins with
right.
top
Oh,
hats
let me
all
tell
done.
you. Let me tell you about the monster manual saying one thing and then people just drawing whatever the fuck they want to.
Drawing
Yep.
Whatever.
Yep. Or honestly, Dungeons and
But I mean,
Dragons drawing
like,
whatever they want to.
The
Wizards.
5e book. Yeah, I was gonna say the 5e hobgoblin picture, the entry. It has hair.
It has hair. Wow.
I can't read.
But
But they do have hair. So at least, yeah, hobgoblins,
so that's a super
bugbears have hair, and fur. Actually, I mean, they're so where they get the name, according to 5e, is that they have the muzzle and nose of a bear, which is where the name comes from. Is they look like a bear, and so they're bugbears. I guess they're kind of buggy
Yeah.
too.
No,
They're
there's
not really
so
buggy.
there's a it's connection to the folklore stuff. Bugbears are like a long time kind of goblin-esque thing that's existed in across most of the European junk. I think it's like English, but then there's like boggles and
Yeah,
other junk. across-
bugaboos.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah,
it.
that's
Right.
yeah. I think that's America. But yeah,
Yep.
so you get there's a whole string of different like etymological roots for the meta like concept of a bugbear, which is sort of originates to being similar to either similar to like a goblin or something like like a boogeyman basically,
Right.
which they share kind of roots with as well as a word.
And these guys are really well equipped to be like bumps in the night. They have very good senses of hearing and smell. They are natural hunters and predators. They are ferocious carnivores that will eat any meat. That scene in Lord of the Rings with the Uruk-hai and the goblin who wants to take off the Pippin and Merry's legs. Meat's back on the menu. They don't get if one of their own dies and they're hungry, they will just rip him into little bits and eat him right there. But that also means that they are constantly hunting because they constantly need a large supply of meat which also means that they don't really want to stay in one place for very long because they usually run out of food in a singular place. So they're not lair monsters.
Well, unless
They could
they've
be.
managed to bully some weaker
Right.
monsters into serving those providing food and all that
Yes.
junk, which tends to be a pretty common trend as well. And yeah, this sort
Yep.
of like established lore of the bugbears. That's sort of their go-to. And they've kind of been the bigger, badder goblin. For like since first edition D&D kind of stuff, and they
From what I've
But that is kind of interesting to think about, because normally when you're encountering bugbears, um, in an adventure or whatever, it's a goblin boss.
mhm.
It's a beefier hobgoblin, and it's kind of neat to think about them as more of like a horror aspect.
Yeah.
Something that's sneaking around in the night.
ambush predator.
and
Right.
I think that that's what D&D, or like at least Wizards of the Coast, want to try to do, because they recognize that hobgoblins and bugbears and orcs have an enormous amount of overlap in terms of like
Yeah.
listening, like littler creatures listening to the big strong hairy one. And so they kind of want, with like the with what the research I did, they're known to like walk into groups of like smaller creatures and like take them over, but only for short amount of time,
Right.
because both groups get tired of being led or being followed by the other. Bugbears are very antisocial, and so they don't usually hold on to positions of power for very long because they want to keep going. They want to like continue traveling. Whereas something like a hobgoblin or a orc may stay and like be the leader of that group for a long period of time, rather than just like the brute coming in and taking all the goblins' food. Um, so I think that that's why they're built as like stealth machines too, because then in I some deep lore here for 5e, the Margul tribes of the lowlands in the um Forgotten Realms is a remnant of the goblinoid empire that existed thousands of years ago, and they're the only remnant that is primarily ruled by bugbears. But the ruling like system are small hunting clans that exist within this land and have loose connections with one another. Bugbears can be found in the other countries of this shattered empire, but they're usually nomadic, and they're usually found they're usually found either alone or leading temporarily small bands in order to gain something and then continue on. So yeah, it's like they can make societies, and they're not like as brutish and stupid as some DMs I think play them, like just as bigger goblins. They actually have like a reasonably rich history in the D&D lore, with regards to how they fill niches better or different than orcs or hobgoblins.
I would sort of counter that with like, I mean, if you compare it to like goblins, even it's
Right.
like a drop in the bucket, like the lore that's
Yeah.
available. Or like I think that hobgoblins, yeah, it's very very similar. They're both a little bit harder to come by, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
like deep stuff on it, but I do think that yeah, they've sort of been rolled into the goblinoid thing now, and it's basically like most savage races in D&D, the quote unquote savage races, that they end up essentially like sort of one dimensional, kind of not they don't change a whole lot. They sort of are just evil because
Right.
they're evil. And you
Yeah.
had talked about the Lord of the Rings bit,
Comparison.
and
Yeah.
and that's I think it's something that's worth looking at, is that you've got like goblins, orcs, and urukai in Tolkien, um, excuse me, early on, like orcs and goblins, that term was like interchangeable. Urukai were a step above, but like
Right.
basically it was just like big goblins. And so I think that that's kind of the same like split that's happened for D&D is they made 3 because Tolkien had 3, and then well they didn't call them orcs, so we can put orcs in now. And then it's
Right.
like, and so you kind of get different stuff happening there that really isn't it's stuff that's pulling from the same kind of source material basically.
Right.
So yeah, like you were saying, there's a lot of overlap between what gets counted as these the savage races, because they're basically just fodder for low level parties to murder, or to be your the minions for your big bad, or to basically just be the problem that's
Right.
whatever your party is
Needs to
having
be
to deal with
solved.
at the moment. Exactly. And yeah, so that's and then you can you talk about sort of going into that on more depth. It's they have this like connection to like the forces of evil directly, like the gods of the
Right.
goblinoids are either in the abyss or Archeron somewhere. So they're either in they're like lesser devils or lesser demons,
Yeah.
depending on which era of D&D you're talking about.
Yep.
But
Yep. Pretty
but it's
marginalized in terms of the greater powers of like the 5e universe, or the Wizards of the Coast universe, Forgotten
yeah.
Realms.
Yeah. And then I found some stuff that's like, they'll form sort of small family like groups, like you were talking about the group there. But that, it's like when shit gets tough, it's like, well, you might be food as well as
Right.
the next guy kind of thing. Because they're basically just these eternally hungry, essentially lazy but very cunning and dangerous hunters.
Yeah.
That, they've got this like natural trend toward survivalism and sort of like a wilderness thing going on, as well as their stealth bit. I feel like it's sort of if somebody who like the like godless killing machines idea of bears, they turned that into like a race. They were like,
Yeah.
we want to anthropomorphize it and make that a thing. It's like, they'll just all of a sudden show up and rip you into shreds and
Suddenly
for
bears.
no reason.
Yeah.
Well, because they just wanted to, and they
Yep.
enjoy violence. Like
So, but something also I found interesting is that there have been accounts of intelligent bugbears, or like bugbears that have been able to make trading empires, or trading like companies, or exploratory companies, or mercenary companies even, and exist within organized society without murdering and eating everything. They still retain their carnivoristic, appetites. You can't train carnivore out of something, but they aren't like always killing, always hunting. So you could, as a DM, build like a bugbear, um, like a bugbear society that was all about like rehabilitating other bugbears. Like, no. Yes, you don't want to. I know you want to eat meat. You don't want to hunt. Here is we just serve it to you 3 meals a day, and you can do what you actually want to do. Would you like to paint? Would you like to play chess? That would be an interesting way of still upholding to all these lore bits, while making it like kind of Xavier's School for Gifted Bugbears.
they've
I
kind
like
of
to think
got
like a
sorry.
monastery or something, right?
Yeah. Ooh, like a bugbear
you could
monk would
totally
be cool.
do that. And
Yeah.
bugbear monks are the shit. But I would say that there is like a bit of like a lore behind their whole like connection to violence and being savage, because it's like Hurugik or whatever,
God,
and
yeah, I hate that
Grackle
name.
or some shit like that. Yeah, just clear your throat and you'll get
HRU.
close.
That's
It's
not a
yeah.
good
Yeah.
consonant vowel combination.
But but so they're these two brothers. Apparently they're like the quintessential bugbears, and they I think it's Rogic or whatever. He's the one that's he's like violence and um shit like that, ambush and those kinds of things, basically strength, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, their folio is all
Um
about violence, but quickly and from behind
Right.
kind of deals.
Yeah, and then the other guy, or whatever the other one, is he's responsible for why the bugbears are so stealthy. He like gave them that ability, but as a price, they're lazy. Basically, he took away their kind of like drive or whatever. And that's why they tend to lay the fuck around all the time. Which I
Yeah.
think is another like bear parallel.
Yes.
They're
Or well, I
yeah,
mean,
just kind of like lay
like
around.
yeah. Well, ambush
Lazy if they're not
predators.
eating you.
That's what they do. They eat.
Mm-hmm.
And then
they
they
do nothing.
sleep,
Yeah.
and then they're incredibly energetic as they try to find something to eat again.
Yeah. And yeah.
So
I
there are a few other things that I've found. They're very intelligent compared to other goblinoids in terms of like strategy.
that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, they use strategies that will put them in advantageous position much more aggressively than other goblinoids. Like where a small group of goblins might like dig a hole and wait for a passerby to come by and fall in the hole and then take their belongings, the bugbears will do stuff like steal a town's children and then torture the children in a forest just outside of town to lure the hunters and the soldiers out of this village. And then while they're trying to find the children, the bugbears run into the town and kill and murder everything inside it while the hunters are looking for the murdered children. Which is
Right.
much more of a aggressive tactic.
Well, I mean,
I-
it's
it-
like a guerrilla tactic,
yeah,
basically.
and in terms of aggressive, yeah, I mean they're not like a spider. They don't build a trap and then wait in hiding for a
there's
long
stuff
period of
where
time.
they'll
It's a-
like lure
kind of
people into ambushes. That's sort of the same idea, but it's not like engineering or something along those lines.
It's more
Right.
social engineering than
Yes.
Yeah.
I guess
Kinda
that's what I meant.
physical.
Yeah, besides instead of aggressive. Because like a goblin isn't going to like wound another goblin and force them to run up through a ditch to guide a group of adventurers up the ditch so that the bugbears can take them from either side. Like the goblins are going to do like the smaller races rely on like passive tricks, things that are well, I guess that's how I would separate them, in my head. If I were going to do
I think that bugbears are much more they're more intelligent
yeah.
and they're more
They're
physically
actually on
apt.
average lower intelligence than goblins.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Oh, interesting.
They have an
The
8.
goblins get
Goblins
some-
have a 10.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
shit. Okay.
Commoners are a 10, but but goblins then have an 8 in wisdom, and bugbears have an 11 in wisdom. So if you look at it as sort
I
of some sort
suppose
of amalgam,
maybe
bugbears
that's-
are a little higher together, but I think it's more to the like the naturalist stuff.
Right.
But either way,
Right.
you're not talking about a modifier difference. So I
Right.
feel like they're pretty much on par, but you just see a different level of like cunning, and
Right.
I guess that's
That's sort of their shtick. Like
Yeah.
they're cunning, they're dexterous, they're stealthy.
Right.
Whereas goblins are like, there's 1,000 of us.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
And we all
let's
have
hide in,
poison
let's hide in the hidey
crossbows.
holes and poke them in the
Yeah.
ankles when they walk by.
Mhm.
Yep.
That I agree with.
Another thing
By
that
the
I
way-
found. Oh yeah.
By
go
the
on.
way, Robog was a bugbear monk.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just to point that one out.
Yeah, that's what I was bugbear monks.
Fucking-
Legit.
He was the original Super Saiyan monk
Yep.
barbarian mixture.
That was also broken.
Oh, yeah.
But
But
something interesting I found about dealing with bugbears and other goblinoids in the Forgotten Realms that I found really interesting is they favor direct and completely honest speech in their communication. So if you and like we said, there are going to be times like bugbears aren't just like predators. They're not animals. Like you can speak to goblinoids. And so if you have a party member with like the ability to talk like in goblinoid, if they try something like, "Hello, sir. How are you today?" The bugbear is going to react much more aggressively and much more violently than if you went, "You what?" It's
or just like we're not a threat or something.
Right.
Like because that's the thing. Yeah, the sort of
Yep.
flowery sort of politeness and things like that are seen as like misdirection,
Yeah.
or at least room for deception.
Exactly.
And I think that that's one of several things that are like pretty interesting about bugbears, and goblinoids in general, that get
Yeah.
kind of just like brushed under the rug because most games need just a blanket evil race that the party can slaughter without moral compunction kind of
Right.
thing.
Right.
And I think that that's
Terrible.
well, it's lame.
No, I'm just
like it's not like
right.
it's not terrible, but like it's obviously I play a goblin in our podcast, so it's um like I personally enjoy turning that trope, but we always talk about how that's a great idea to do with all these quote unquote savage races, is to try and find a way to make it so that maybe that's just a perception of
Mhm.
the quote unquote civilized world, and there's all these mitigating circumstances that cause these perceptions. Um, and that it really is much more of a conventional society, because if you look at it, I mean, they're a lot like Klingons or something. If
Right.
you're familiar, like they're totally battle driven. Yeah, maybe they're not as bloody or something, or Klingons might not be quite as bloody or whatever. But a lot of the stuff I was reading, like, oh, fights between friends, or bugbears who hang out, like, can get to what would look bloody to other people.
Yep.
And stuff like that, as just show a strength things. And like that reminded me very much of sort of stuff you hear from the Klingon junk. I'm watching a ton of Star Trek lately, obviously. But the other thing is the Norse Valhalla,
Mhm.
or the Klingon fucking, I can't remember what it's called, but their version of the same thing
Right.
is very much like what they end up doing. If they epitomize the ideal of a bugbear, then they go and fight alongside Rogic,
Forever.
in Archeron,
Yeah.
and so that's they're sort of an endless warrior then, and that's what they love, and so that's what they get to do.
Right.
And there's a lot of this, well, they have no honor whatsoever, and it's kind of like, well, there's these traces, like they appreciate direct and honest speech, sort of seems to imply, or at least direct speech implies that they appreciate honesty, which
Yeah.
implies a sense of honor. There's this sort of if bugbears are the leaders regularly of a lot of these smaller bands of other goblinoids, maybe there's some driving reason. There's actually a cause for that. It's not just because they're bigger and stronger, although that
Right.
helps. It's because they're good leaders, or they have some sort of force of personality, or whatever. That I think is worth looking at as well. And the other bit, it's like, I guess, like, it's yeah, any group of people that are pushed to the edge of a society that aren't allowed, that get cleared out in whenever they organize in numbers larger than 5, like they're vermin. You're gonna have a less established,
Right.
formal society kind of thing. So I think it's worth like investigating how you can turn them into more than just experience points for your party, I guess.
Right. Right. And I think that's so. We should have done this at the beginning of the segment, but the Smarter Than Your Average Bugbear is a new Table 13 segment where we go
Oh,
in depth and discover what is like common among the race or the creature that we're talking about, and then try to create some more depth, or at least try to get away from the, like Mr. E said there, just bags of experience points for your players to break open. You can provide a lot of depth into both the Forgotten Realms setting as well as a homebrew setting if you carefully decide why certain races or groups are antagonistic to parties rather than just straight up evil. Which is one of the things I have a problem with the Forgotten Realms setting is they do a lot of essentialist, oh, this race is connected to evil, and so they're going to do evil, chaotic things, where that's pretty objective language there, but this is not a philosophy podcast, so I can't just dive into that line.
Yeah.
But going in the opposite direction, I suppose, I think that if we were to like strip these guys down to where they could go in a homebrew setting versus like the Forgotten Realms. And so like forget the and the like
The associations with
all
the
the
Dugia and
association,
the other
yeah.
assorted
Yeah,
goblinoid deities,
as
things
like
like that.
evil, you could make them sort of like a wild man kind of race where they're just known to be loners, they're known to stick to wilderness, they don't group up very large, and they're incredibly misunderstood by the quote unquote civilized groups of people in a homebrew setting.
Bigfoots.
Yeah, Bigfoots,
Race of
exactly.
Bigfoots.
But Bigfoots that know hunting and tracking skills. Like that would be
Bigfoots.
terrifying. Yeah. Oh, right. I'm sorry. You know him personally. He's a great
Duh.
trapper. Yeah. But so
Fucking
Also like
Sam
crochet.
Squanch.
Sam Squinch. So yeah. So but like with that idea, what could we do to these guys to make them a little bit more interesting, or what could a DM do so they're not just bags of experience points? Because we did talk about like their motivations can be such that they are misunderstood to be these stereotypes. They're misunderstood to be like fighting dirty or cruel and unfair or that kind of thing when they're actually just smarter. Like, oh, they fight unfairly, but you're just, that's no, they just outmaneuvered you. Now you're fighting uphill. That's not unfair. That's just better strategy than what you had. So there is some of these things, these things that the Forgotten Realms or 5e or D&D tries to put into some of these races that you could like use just as rumor rather than actual fact. They could be actually connected to a god of evil, but that also could very well be cultural like ignorance over their practices.
But I agree. Yeah, no, like I think that the perceptions of the sort of organized society dictating a lot of this stuff, because most of the information your players are going to have is just sort of whatever they have heard from whoever may or may not have actually interacted directly with um anything that they're talking. There's going to be a lot of common knowledge that's garbage, and um I think that that's fairly realistic, and it shouldn't. I don't think you should be afraid of letting your players believe something like the trope of all god, they're just evil because they're evil kind of thing, and then sort of explore or slowly let the player discover how that's not the case, basically. So
Right.
let them run into different
I mean, you could
facets of the society or whatever.
very easily bring in, because we've talked about how they formulate clans, and that sort of family group, if you will. There, I mean, you can get really deep on, like this bugbear who has left his clan and is now bunked down with a bunch of goblins and is doing some silly stuff there. Maybe he's an outlaw from his clan. Maybe he was an outcast or an exile, and you can kind of get into that. I think with what you were talking about, with them having sort of a Klingon style, that kind,
Yeah,
that doesn't have to be
or
inherently
predator
evil.
or something like
It's
that.
it's something that I
It could
think
be
is very it fights against normal quote unquote civilized races because it's different, you know.
right.
But I think you could find a place among that society, or come to a neutral standing with them by understanding what they're what they respect, and all of that, and playing to that, and really be able to interact with these people in these groups to find stuff like that out, and learn more about them on that level. Because it
Yeah.
sounds like what you were saying basically was, a lot of the negative, I guess what you could call misconceptions in the situation that we're presenting, um, would be derived from adventurers that got killed by them, or that lost
Right.
friends to them, or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Or some sort of series of back and forth kind of thing where
Right.
it's the humans showed up in this area and it's unclaimed because
Right.
nobody else has built a town
A
here
city,
yet, but
yeah.
it's already actually the hunting grounds for the bugbears, and now they're getting pushed out into lands where they got to compete with the giants for food, or you know what I mean? Like there's all these strings of things that you can start to draw into it to make it less just, oh well, they're bad, so they like the taste of flesh. It's like,
Right.
no, like the other option is getting murdered by bigger, eat meaner things. So they've decided to come here and prey on weaker, or or you can look at it as it's asymmetrical warfare kind of thing. Like
Right.
basically, yeah, these people have been yeah, that there isn't an option for conventional assemblage or whatever. You can't. There aren't enough bugbears around to field a conventional force,
Right.
and it's not to their benefit. They're really good at doing the kind of commando shock troop sort
Yeah.
of thing. So, um, it's kind of more effective. And then yeah, if they're operating in these small little cell like things that have some loose association with each other, they could maybe be much more effective in small teams like that. And you could have this network of kind of like family group of bugbears that that are nomadic and maybe meet up in certain seasonal migratory spots, or for certain ritualistic stuff. I mean, they've got this focus on the hunt and the survivalism, naturism stuff. Like you could tweak this bloodlust stuff going on into a much more like animistic, shamanistic sort of situation very easily with some
Yeah.
small tweaks. Like these brother gods, you could make that a whole thing that sets them to family first kind of
Mhm.
thing, and then down the line, because there is, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's like going to the established lore. They do have this, they're brothers, and one of them is always up and always active and always keeping an eye out for the other. And when he's not, he has, chopped off the heads of his enemies and put them on stakes to use as sentries for when his, brother's sleeping, kind of thing. It's like, yeah, it's super savage, but there is this familial bond that exists.
Right.
Well, and while
And
the society may still not be at that level, because you look at that and it's like Neolithic, right? It's like some kind of caveman shit. Um, and while the society may not be at that level, maybe they're almost to the point of the humans or the elves or the dwarves or whatever in like a technology or like cultural advancement level, they would still strive to adhere to these rituals and things,
right.
you know. And so when fighting, or which would probably be something which is relatively sacred to them, they would go back to things like heads on stakes and stuff like that, because that's like a religious ritual for them.
Right. And I think,
And
yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
I think that just like cuts to the heart of it. Really, is it that any ritual or something that's seen as a barbaric practice from in an outside perspective is going to generate rumors and fear that fall into line of like the bugbear. So as a home brewer, you could come up with some really cool or brutal like rituals that could fuel some of this distrust and paranoia and fear about the bugbear. It would be really interesting if you like set it up, because like again too, bugbears are not a very high CR, and so you're gonna
Yeah.
have them introduced into a game really early before the player characters are very heroic
Yes,
or
tier
very
one
high
play,
power.
probably.
Yeah, exactly.
Unless you've got like a field of 50 of them or something.
So it would be very interesting if you were like to come up to a town that is being that says they're being hunted by like a bugaboo, or a boogeyman,
Right.
and it turns out to be like a group of bugbears that are trying to survive on the outskirts of this town after some kind of like
Yeah, maybe
interaction between
stealing
the town.
cattle
Yeah,
or
exactly.
tools or whatever it is, sort
Yeah,
of bare necessity stuff that they need to keep going.
I
Yeah,
get
that
it.
could be a
Bare
really
necessities.
bare
Bugbear necessities.
bugbear
Oh.
necessities.
Woo, woo.
The simple
Mm,
bugbear
necessities of life. Yep. Yep, that was good. Okay,
Stop
we're
it.
we're
Please
done.
stop.
We're good.
I'm
We don't
out. Yeah,
we
we're
don't need
calling it
any
a
more.
session.
Yeah.
Thanks everybody
that's
for
it.
joining us tonight.
Yep. But yeah, so there is
Call it an hour of it.
definitely ways to take these shamanistic, naturalistic outsiders and make them more than just the biggest goblin in the group of goblins, because I think that there's a lot of stuff here that could make for some really interesting stories. Um,
So they,
yeah, go
sorry.
on. No, go on. Yeah,
Okay. So
I was gonna lead us on, but you want to stay
sure.
here, so we're gonna stay here.
Well, vaguely, but so it's. I was gonna say another thing that I think gets sort of glazed over with goblins that or goblinoids collectively. That's kind of an interesting thing. That's like sort of one of these signs of actual culture kind of thing. Is there's this like collective um goblinoid like cultural identity that
Mhm.
seems to exist even in the lore, that like these three very disparate races that look they work together and organize in groups together, better than a lot of the civilized races in a lot of cases, it seems like. Which I think that's kind of an interesting thing. So I've always really enjoyed this idea of sort of the like, yeah, goblins are high goblins, or sorry, hobgoblins are high goblins, goblins are sort of lower,
Yeah.
and and then you've got bugbears as the like ogre style or something like that version of them, but that they all fit into this one unified, organized
Mhm.
society of a sort. And I think that's kind of a cool concept as well. It's sort of like a quote, a savage metropolis or whatever. Is they're just, yeah, no, there's totally organized large numbers of goblinoids. They're just too far away from the humans, or
Right.
for the elves or whatever, for people to um realize, or something like
Mhm.
that, I guess.
Mhm.
But so yeah, that's I think that, yeah, you can, that there's a lot of very interesting little bits and pieces that aren't kind of tied together super well across the established lore,
Yeah.
that could lead to a much more like kind of involved player race sort of background, where we've got these tropes for all the races, but um yeah, I don't know, you can make them not just like villains pretty
Yeah.
well, I think.
So, and something I did forget to mention that I found in my research that was metal as hell is that hobgoblins, right, were the original goblinoid. They bred themselves to produce goblins and bugbears for slave labor. And I thought
Right.
that that was like just like a terrifying social engineering prospect. Like, you're just like, okay, we're all one race, but we really need like some
Eugenics.
some people underneath us, so we're just going to take a bit of our own society and turn them into weaker, terribler versions of ourselves, or bigger, stronger, stupider versions of ourselves.
Right.
And that's just like a wow. And that kind of goes to the brutalistic nature of the goblinoid races, is that, like, they're willing to do something like that to themselves in order to, produce some kind of efficient survival aspect out of the whole deal. And
Right.
I don't see elves doing that. I don't see it on the Forgotten Realms, at least.
If you're a drow, you say that's what happened, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
um, but no, yeah, that is a decent point too, though. It's like they're really, you don't see a lot of that in the good races. Is
Right.
the sort of, yeah, the well, I mean, you look at humans, there's a lot, because that's
Well,
where
yeah.
all the fucking conflict happens. But
Right.
there's a lot of like atrocities enacted on other humans, or at least other, like sentient, civilized races of people and stuff like that.
I mean, when you think about it that way, there's not that, we're not too different, you and I.
Right.
Like, so
Yeah.
they did it. They just did it with their own people, like,
Yeah.
or their own, like, did some kind of weird,
Yeah.
like, genetic situation.
That's
Mhm.
the
for
that's the
breeding or
interesting
whatever.
part, is like the fantasy eugenics is like
Yeah.
a weird concept of like, okay, so
think you
we'll
use
just
magic
get the
for that?
big strong guys.
I don't know. Yeah.
It's easier to explain than generations and generations.
Right,
of,
yeah.
like secondary selection. Like, I don't think that's
It's
super likely. Got a fast generation time for goblinoids, but
Just
still.
the short bugbears or the short hobgoblins all get bred together.
yeah.
Like, where did the fur come from? That's what I wanted. Like, how did that crop
The
up? Were
hairiest
they just
ones.
like, ah,
Yeah,
shit,
the
we've come too
hairiest
far.
ones,
Like,
yeah.
we can't.
Well, I mean,
They
fur
keep getting hairier.
grows
Is it
on
just me, or is like
fur grows on animals that live in the cold, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
So they just send a bunch of them out to the cold for
Right.
like
that
a
makes
million
sense.
years,
But I guess like yeah, I mean that's not.
and they developed fur because the
So-
You'd
hairier
still
ones
need like the slow.
survived.
Yeah, exactly.
So
You'd still need
speaking
that selection for hair.
speaking of building a bugbear,
God,
also
stop it
for
with these
Stealing my
goddamn
fucking
oh
jokes.
my
God damn it.
Build a
the
bugbear.
build a bugbear. The Forgotten Realms or Wizard of Coast has also provided bugbear stats for player
they sure do.
characters. And I think it's like legit now. I don't think it's like UA or anything like that.
No,
It's
they've been out for.
Isn't it
It's-
Volo's?
Since,
Isn't it in Volo's guide?
Volos,
yeah, Volos. So
Yeah, so it's been out for like
Well,
a billion years.
we'll go over the stats of a player character bugbear here, and they're actually pretty good. They're a really good class in my opinion. So you get an ability score increase, your strength score increases by 2, and your dex score increases by 1. Really good for martial classes, because that's what
honestly,
they do.
Usually, you don't need both though.
Right, normally
That's
generally,
true.
you're either
gonna build
strength or
4
dex.
strength or 4
Right.
dex, so they're good, and that's not like you can make
Right.
like a medium armor wearing guy, or like they're gonna be really good for a barbarian. You want to do a strength rogue, a strength monk. Like there's a bunch of stuff that they'll be very effective for,
Right.
but yeah, that's not a super like synergistic ability set or modifier choice or whatever it is.
It's not the best, but it's still reasonable.
It's gonna be good. You're gonna want one of those too, no matter what,
Right.
like basically whatever kind of character you make in D&D though. So
Uh,
that's,
you get the goblin language as well as common. You are sneaky. You are proficient in the stealth skill as a racial ability, which is pretty cool in my opinion.
yeah.
Stealth is one of those skill rolls that get rolled all the time. And if you're
Yes.
playing a rogue or something, it's every session that you're going to be rolling a stealth skill. And by being proficient in that skill, it frees up another
Right.
proficiency slot that you can throw something else into your rogue, or or your sneaky monk or something like that.
Well, and that's and for somebody like a fighter or a barbarian who's getting like 4 skills altogether, getting one more is a big that's
Is pretty good,
significant.
yeah.
Yeah, a whole nother skill is really nice.
I find it interesting that they don't get survival.
Yeah,
Maybe
they've got
it's
like a
like
whole
assuming
thing.
maybe it's like assuming that the player character ones are not living
Like
in
city.
clans and
or
stuff.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
That's a
that makes sense.
yeah. Your speed is 30 feet, pretty reasonable.
that's awesome, man.
Yep.
That's so fast.
Woo. Long
That's the
limbed.
standard speed for
This
medium
is pretty
class
cool though.
creatures, just-
Long
You missed
limbed.
the age one. You missed the age one.
Okay,
age
yeah,
one.
okay. They
Age.
reach adulthood at 16 and they live up to 80 years, which
Oh,
okay,
just like
yeah.
humans. I
just
guess.
about a
Never mind.
humans.
a
Yeah.
little
Not
younger.
interesting. Sorry. I'm so sorry.
The long limbed part is really the thing I wanted to talk about. Whenever you make a melee attack on your turn, your reach for it is 5 feet greater than normal.
If it were
Pretty
just
good.
your reach is increased by 5 feet, then yes, it would be
Yeah.
incredibly broken.
But it's
only on
still
your turn.
pretty
so
good though. It's
you can't-
still pretty good.
Like opportunity attacks with polearm, mastery, and
Right.
sentinel
You're
like are
running
not
around
getting
with a
extended
15.
to
You're still running
15.
around with a 15-foot reach. if you're
Sure,
using a
but if
certain
you're
weapon.
10 feet away from somebody, they're already in melee range with you, right? So I mean, it's not huge. Like there are situations where it's absolutely hugely beneficial. Like if you're attacking somebody who has a pole arm from like an elevated position, they can't reach you from or something
Right.
like that. Absolutely. But but like that's not going to be super common.
I love that idea.
Just imagine, and the way that they word it, I have a problem with the way they word it.
Yeah.
They work
'Cause
so hard.
if your arms are long enough that you can reach out an extra 5
Yeah.
feet,
Yeah.
Why aren't they longer on not your turn? Why aren't
Yep.
they longer when
It's
you're
so
trying
you
to grab a
can't
ladder?
do it with
But
reactions.
that makes me think he's
So
got
you
Gumby
can't
on.
use full arm.
Go
Like, he's, like,
gadget
stretching them
bugbear
out.
arm.
He's doing some like
It's
rat
Piccolo
smack.
shit,
Weird.
right?
Yeah.
I absolutely agree with that. I also think that but I mean, at the end of the day, though, you have an 8-foot or a pike that fits into a 5-foot square that can reach 10 feet.
Right.
So
Talk
I
about it.
mean,
Yeah.
it's dumb. It doesn't
Yeah.
make any sense. But at the end of the day, combat it's an abstraction.
Right.
Right.
There are things you've got to like just take as like, well, yeah, that's not how it really works, but we've sacrificed the realism for practicality at the
balance, yeah.
table, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, that's dumb.
But
It
still,
doesn't make any sense that they should have more reach.
I think it's a
half the time.
cool racial ability.
It's
in my
really
opinion.
good.
I think
it
it's
is
cool.
really good.
Because there's also some. I've seen some crazy like suggestions that people have made. Like if you get a level 10 artificer can use more than one. They can use more than their normal number of prosthetic limbs. Like they can attune to more than one hand or
Gotcha.
something like that. And so they were like, yeah, you could make a bugbear artificer who is just like a walking, a like ball of arms, all with pole arms. And so you could have like, like it's 6
Extra
attacks.
reach weapon.
Yeah, with your robot arms. Or a Doc Ock. That was another thing someone suggested, is you could make Doc Ock as a bugbear artificer.
Oh,
And he's got his 4 tentacle arms that can stretch out and slap people at a longer range. So
That's pretty cool.
I think that the long-limbed thing, while it's not game-breaking, nor does it make a whole lot of sense in terms of closing your eyes and imagining a bugbear, his arms going boing, boing. It definitely...
The guy on Street Fighter?
it definitely gives it a little bit of flavor that you could use to like make some other parts of classes really interesting. Like
Oh yeah.
there's some like shield stuff that you could do too that would be pretty interesting. But regardless, next is dark vision. You can see
Classic.
60 feet. Yep.
Like goblins,
Dim light,
all the other
bright
guys,
light.
and basically everything except for
like
Dragon
everything
Ball.
Right.
but Dragon.
Yeah.
Yep. Hey, humans don't get dark sight. That's not fair.
Oh,
No,
yeah,
they
but
just get like
they
a
get
fucking
feat.
feat.
Yeah.
And, yeah, or a +1 to everything and a skill or 2 or whatever it is.
So they also
That one's
get
pretty weak.
powerful build. You can count as 1 sarge larger when determining your character capacity and all the weight in which you could push, drag, or lift.
That is such a useless ability.
Yes.
see.
Nobody tracks weight. Nobody tracks.
Nobody tracks
I've
weight
never-
until it becomes valuable. That's the thing. Well,
Yeah,
you're
okay.
right.
That's
So
fair.
I start asking questions about weight when it's like, oh, I want to huck so and so over here. It's like, okay, well, what's your carrying capacity? Like, because if they're trying to throw half their carrying capacity, like they're not throwing that
Right.
anywhere. You know what I mean? Like the shot puts like 5 to 10% of most people's carrying.
And I've
capacity,
definitely
like,
started getting really serious about carrying capacity when gold hordes or treasure hordes
Yeah.
are a thing, because like if you're 12 stories down, like 12 levels down at the bottom of a dungeon, and you found
Right.
a 10,000 gold coin treasure horde.
If you found 10,000 gold somewhere, you have a fucking bag of holding, or like 10 of them.
I mean, but if you don't,
Maybe not.
then
Maybe you're in our game and you've just
Right.
never
Right.
run
And
into
you
anything
See, yeah.
magical or gold
You never get
related.
loot.
hey, or you were in my Soldiers of Fortune game where a level 2s or 3s found 10,000 gold, and part of the whole adventure was trying not to lose their
Yeah,
gold.
you can't spend it. 'Cause
Yeah.
it's a specific 10,000 or
Specific
whatever,
kind of, yeah, exactly. And so you're just carrying this enormous, very heavy, very valuable load of stuff, and if you've got powerful build, well, you can carry more than your gnome companion. Also, bugbears get surprise attack. If you surprise any creature and hit it with an attack on your turn in the combat, and the attack is on your first turn of combat, and also the attack, what?
I hate the way they phrase
Yeah,
this. So
it's
stupid.
really bad.
You can't surprise an enemy on any other turn but your
Than
first
your
turn in
own,
combat.
yes.
Like,
If you do surprise the enemy, you get an extra 2d6 damage applied to that attack. You can only use it once per once per combat, which is a
Which is
weird
also
way.
a dumb thing
Yeah.
because you can
I
also
mean,
only
it's just
surprise
it's
people
just
once per combat.
it's just like this thing right here just tells me make an assassin rogue.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
that's all.
see, that's what you. But realistically, honestly, I think that makes it almost a waste to go assassin because you kind of get that halfway a little bit. You sort
Right.
of get some of the value of what assassin does, and surprise just doesn't happen very often. It depends on your DM, but yeah, I think I've done like one or two surprise rounds in like in twice as many years of that of 5e.
I find it interesting that it is any attack. Like as long as you surprise a creature, it doesn't have to be a melee attack. It can be ranged, or it can be a spell attack too. So if you're running a Bugbear wizard, your fireball gets a bump by 1 spell level, right?
No, it's not an attack. It's a save.
Oh, that's okay.
But if
True.
it's something like
So like firebolt or
something that's a
guiding
attack.
bolt or
something you're rolling a d20 to hit on.
Right.
If they're making a save though, it wouldn't be an attack.
That's true.
But yeah, no, and that's I think that's the thing though, is it's another one of those spots where HP is a weird metric for combat flow rather than like meat points, but I think that's the idea, is that it's sort of along the same lines as sneak attack. You're basically just able to kind of take advantage or better advantage of that surprise. But yeah, so like I was kind of saying, like you could throw that on like a swashbuckler, for example, which I made a Bugbear swashbuckler who is fucking badass because you can just throw an attack at somebody and then move by like it's they're before they're even in range to hit you, and it's pretty nice with the fleet footwork or whatever it is, the thing that the halfway mobile feature that swashbuckler gets. But basically, yeah, they're interesting as a character because you can make some very like kind of different builds that I think you don't end up getting with a lot of other. There aren't a ton of strength races,
Right.
And then like you're saying, yeah, if you go make like a Bugbear wizard or something, that's a cool
Yeah.
character already. You don't have to do
Yeah.
anything else. It's already a cool concept. Or like a Bugbear bard. Like
Yeah.
people are gonna be like, oh, okay, what's that about? Like,
Yeah, especially with some of these racial bonuses that you get as like a Bugbear bard. If you played your card right, it could be really interesting how that plays out. It's like I was thinking about like a Bugbear bard spell sniper, because it would be easy to get surprises on people if you were 120 feet away and there is some like magic missile. That counts as an attack, right? Magic missile?
Magic missile you don't roll.
I don't think it's considered a spell attack.
Okay, interesting.
I'm not
That
sure
would be,
though.
But other spells like that though, yeah,
right.
That would be, and it plays, it kind of plays back to that boogeyman thing,
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
like this eerie music in the fog, and then suddenly there's a fucking icicle sticking out of your mouth.
Oh my god. It's like May in Overwatch.
Yeah, Deliverance. You're walking down the path and banjos start playing. Bugbears in overalls now. That's all I can picture. Like barefoot. Just one strap done.
This is our part of the forest, boy.
On each other, clam and stuff. Oh god, I'm a fan of that.
Well,
swamp bears.
I think that we're gonna take a break here in about 3 minutes. But when we come back, we're going to build a Bugbear, and maybe if we have time, build him a little Bugbear hunting party. Or I think we should probably just make a hunting party and then see if we have time.
I'm really thinking we just make swamp bears.
Swamp bears? Okay. So we're going to take a 10-minute break and then build swamp bears. Before we take a break, Shady has a plug for us.
Right. That's the thing I do.
It is.
And I'm going to ruin it because I always do.
You must. It is tradition.
It is.
Now if you don't ruin it, you're ruining it.
Thanks
everybody for watching what are we called again?
Table 13. Rational Radio.
Took like 7 seconds.
Eric's over here losing his mind. Thanks everybody for tuning in. You're watching Table 13, and we are Irrational Radio. Table 13 is every Thursday. We'll do this next Thursday and the following Thursday and every Thursday after that for the rest of eternity.
Yes.
We
Forever.
do a podcast. It's like a real play podcast with the three of us and then two others, Mike and Rachel, or not Mike and Rachel, Sam and Rachel. I'm a dummy.
Mike's an NPC in that game that we
Right.
all
He
hate.
does jump
Not
in
that
from time
Mike,
to time.
but
Oh, the other
no,
Mike.
I meant like there is a Mike.
shitty
in our
Mike.
game. Yeah, the
Fuck
worst
that guy.
human being.
Fuck
ever.
that.
No relation.
That comes out every other Friday. It'll be coming out tomorrow. Will be our 21st episode, and then every other Friday following that. It comes out the Monday before normally for our patrons. This week it did not. It came out on Wednesday, and that's my bad. I'm so sorry, guys. But it's out now, so forgive me. And then the other things we do Gods of Aether every other Monday.
Did you almost say we do drugs?
I mixed
sounded
up
like you're
Gods of
about to say-
Aether and Dragons of Fairly
Okay,
Fair.
no, that makes more sense.
But I mean, we could say drugs, I guess. Whatever.
No,
don't do that.
We do Gods of Aether. We did that this last month. So
Yep.
it won't be this coming Monday, but the following Monday, and I always do this and I don't look it up first, but the 29th, it'll be our next Gods of Aether. That is run by our amazing Kyle. He's a great DM. And it's right here on Twitch.
Woo.
We are working on trying to get the old episodes up on YouTube so that
Yep.
people can catch up.
I have
And
bits and pieces of the first one that I'll be cobbling together and uploading over this next week here.
Awesome. Perfect. What about anyway, you can join our Discord. It's located below the stream here. There's a little button that says join our Discord, and it has a little
There's a
Discord
link.
thingy, and you click on the Discord thing, and it takes you
Click
to
the Discord thingy.
Discord's located in the internet, so it's more
Right.
nebulous than it's not
Yeah.
physical
Um,
location.
Also, if you like what we're doing and you want to help support us financially, we have a Patreon that you can pledge to. If you do that, there's a whole list of things that you get, little perks and stuff. We do a monthly giveaway, and patrons get submissions to that. Also, if you want more information on that, because you can actually get into our giveaway without having to pay any money. It's located on our website, on our Discord, under the news channel, and you can kind of see how to get entries on that. It happens in 2 days. So if you're wanting to get this month, we're giving a Wonder Draft. So if you want to get that for free, jump on there and look at what you can do to get in that.
For
drawing.
those listening to this on YouTube 6 months from now, you're not going to be able to get into that drawing because it happened way in the past.
But there will be a
But
different one
yes,
during the month
that you're watching this. If you join our Discord, there will be a giveaway that month. So whenever it is,
it might not be in 2 days, but
it may not be in 2 days from this
Probably
date
won't.
that
it
you're
will be
watching,
at least
but
within 30 days.
it
from
will,
the time you watch
yes,
this video.
provided that society hasn't completely collapsed by that point. But
No, even then,
Or we've
even
abandoned
then,
the
even then,
standard,
we're gonna
like,
have
solar
private
calendar.
servers set up, and we're gonna be doing all this from.
that's true.
From,
From a bunker.
Pirate irrational radio.
Yep. All right. So we are going to take a break, and then we are going to come back and build the swamp bears. Thank you very
Swamp
much, everybody.
bears.
See you in a
Love
little
you
bit.
guys.
Bye.
Attention! If you or a loved one has been diagnosed with lycanthropy, you may be entitled to financial compensation. Lycanthropy is a rare, uncontrolled animalis transformation linked with monster bite exposure. Exposure to monster bites in the mercenary, adventuring, questing, or mortuary industries may put you at risk. Please don't wait. Raven 1-800-99-RAR-RNG for a free legal consultation and a financial information scroll. Lycanthropy patients send a Raven now. 1-800-RAR-RNG.
And we are back, everybody, from the break that we were on just 10 minutes ago. But now we're back from that break. We were talking about bugbears.
Yes, we were,
We
Yep.
sure
And-
were.
and swamp bears. Actually.
Swamp bears.
That's right.
So yeah, we're gonna take a shot at building a little tribe of bugbears here. Something that's going to be a little different from your normal everyday bugbear tribe. And it's gonna be banjo bears, I guess. This is what we've decided. So like
True.
these guys live in a swampy forest then, or swampy
The
area.
bayou.
The bayou, yeah, big swamp trees.
I like to think they didn't start there, but they were pushed there, which gives them that sort of like
Okay,
why are they fighting against humanity or
yeah,
whatever.
all right, okay,
That makes
all right.
sense. Because you'd probably
Um,
think bugbears would be in like or colder climates as a general rule,
Right.
and being furry would suck in a swamp.
Yeah.
But,
well,
um,
and swamps are about like the most useless tract of land, right? Like
Right.
generally speaking,
nobody
yeah.
likes
Nobody
a
else wants it.
wetland. So yeah, they just push them there because they wanted the forests for trees and they wanted the plains for farming, and so they militarily pushed them back, and um, yeah, so now they're in the swamp. But I think they've been there for a long time, that they've grown accustomed to it, and at least within their culture and society. I like that they run around on like rafts,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
really
Some,
really shallow boats.
some sorcerers that can storm sorcerers that can manipulate wind magic.
Yeah. Oh my
Alright.
god.
Fan boats?
Fan
Come
boats?
on, people. This
There's
is what
just
it's
two
all about.
bugbears in the back going.
Gust of wind,
Yeah.
gust of wind.
Just
It's like
windmilling
the,
their arms over and over again.
the
How are we gonna
swamp
explain
waterbenders or
Yeah,
whatever.
from Avatar. Yep.
Yeah.
How are we gonna explain the overalls?
um,
They-
stealing them from
Yeah.
the
Ooh,
locals.
there you
I
go.
don't
Mhm,
know.
There you go.
mhm.
Maybe the swamp
that's
is like they don't. In a swamp you can't grow
Overalls.
cotton.
anything.
You know,
Yeah,
you can't.
you
You can't
definitely
get-
can't grow overalls.
No.
no, I
Nope.
don't think you can do that anywhere.
It's a very select climate.
And
For
you probably aren't raising sheep.
Right.
So clothing isn't something you come by. So I think until they started making incursions into the plains and where the
Now,
farmers were at.
hang on. Like, are these overalls made of denim, or are these over? It's like
Prefer blue jeans.
overalls
yeah.
are just they can be made out of a variety of materials. So these guys could be like
Ooh.
leather overalls,
or
you know?
leaf, like
Leaf overalls,
woven
right,
leaves,
right.
into
Oh,
overalls.
woven leaf.
No,
Yeah.
that's not
Swamp wreaths, you know?
But I also think that maybe maybe there's a very prominent overall purveyor in the area.
He's a
that
bugbear
has-
too.
Well, no, I was gonna say that has supply chains that run through this swamp or something.
Oh
that
my
they
God,
frequently raid and end up
they-
with a lot of overalls.
Overalls.
They raid a giant like merchant caravan that's just carrying
It's
overalls.
just
Right,
got
yeah.
so many, and they've got just crates
We
of
got
overalls.
pants, guys.
Their flag is just a pair of overalls.
overalls,
attached
yeah.
to a
They've
pole.
had,
Yep, dyed
you know,
red halfway or
like-
something.
I
Yeah.
mean, we
we're really
jest, we
hoping
make
for
jokes,
food.
But I think at the heart of the jokes are some really neat little
Yeah.
like lore bits, right? Like
Uh-huh.
you go into the swamp and you meet the swamp bears or the
Yep.
what would we call it? Bog bears.
Bogbears.
Ooh,
Yeah.
Bugbear is good.
I
That's
like
good.
Bogbear. Yeah, it's like Bugbear,
And-
but
And you
bog.
see their flag that's being flown. There's a pair of overalls, and
Yep.
it raises the question why? Why is
Like,
that?
what the
thing?
hell? And
Yeah.
yeah, there's that whole like I think any sort of whatever primitive culture that you see this sort of people who are running around like hunting gathering kind of stuff who are wearing some like manufactured
Right.
post-processed like article of clothing kind
Yeah.
of thing like that. That's an interesting tidbit, and it does sort of lend you toward okay, well, they must be rating for that because you don't okay, well, there's no looms around here, they're obviously not making this
Right.
on their own, this cloth of their own kind of thing. There isn't any material to weave from or whatever, so they've got to be getting it somewhere kind of thing. And then so you get like sort of a more dynamic, and like it's not like, oh yeah, they raid because they like killing stuff
Right.
and violence is fun, so they they just happen to stumble across some overalls.
Hemp, actually, because Bags put a thing in here.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Hemp.
Speaking of that,
Oh my god.
hemp
Drug
brings me to
bears,
weed,
guys.
which brings
Drug
me
bears.
Yeah.
to drug bears,
Drug
which
bears.
brings me to these flowers.
Oh yeah,
The
we forgot to talk
balance
about the
flowers.
Bones flowers. Yeah.
I really like the idea that there's like that they treat them like a drug, and that it's like sedates them, right? And so, what if like the Bowen's flowers just grow really well in this swamp,
Sure.
Sure,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's almost
and they're
like
like all
a
addicted to it? Like
yeah, like
it's
opium in China kind of
right,
situation.
It's
You know,
lazy
and they're
blue jean
extremely
wearing swamp
protective
bears.
right.
of the Bowen's flowers that grow there. And so,
Okay.
anybody who happens to just meander into the swamp, like they just get taken down.
I love it.
Actually,
Yeah.
it could also be a connection to like organized society. That could be an export.
Oh yeah.
If for some reason this is a narcotic for anyone other than just bugbears, then suddenly now you have like a vector for interaction with the rest of society, which is kind of interesting. And they're like a single product culture. You know, it's like Dutch tulips or whatever. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like that's a thing, you know, that's a domino that's ready to fall, I guess, that can, you know, be a tension one way or the other. If you do like, oh, they, you know, really bad flood one year, or, you know, or a drought, or whatever, and you mess that up, suddenly now they don't have their, you know, way to peaceably get
Right.
whatever it is that they normally need to survive. So now they've got to go out raiding countrysides or something like that.
Yeah.
That's kind of more interesting than just like we kill stuff because we want to kill stuff.
Right.
Thing.
Yeah. I think
I think
that's
that's kind of the point, right? That's the thing. Like, you create these bugbears, and bugbears exist in your world, and they
Mhm.
exist as they do in the D&D world, and they lead groups of goblins in caves and whatever, and kill adventurers. But you gotta have these little fringe groups that exist.
right.
These memorable chunks of people that, I guarantee you, if you take your players and you interact with or introduce them to the Bogbear tribes, they're
Right.
gonna be like, that was fucking cool. That
Yeah.
was memorable. That was funny. It was clever, and it would be a good basis for a neat little adventure that, you interacting with these weird backwater, if you will,
Yeah.
tribes of
Flower growing. Yeah.
flower growing
Right.
bugbears in swamps. Like, that's the kind of stuff that, if you can sit down and dream some of these things up. And I think that's going to be part of what we're doing with these, smarter than your average bugbear segments, where we take different monsters and do this, is to try and just give you a new perspective, a new look at what you can do with monsters that isn't the basic garbage that
Right.
exists and is expected of them.
Yeah.
Right.
Crick elves, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
I
That
love
kind of thing.
Something's
Yep.
amiss at the crick.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and yeah, so there's another little bit here that I think is interesting. Yeah, bugbears just got this whole super lazy thing going on. I think that's another like avenue for like cultural development. It's like, yeah, people say like necessity is the mother of invention, but like I feel like laziness is the deadbeat dad. So if you think about it as like, yeah, it's just a bunch of people who are trying to find more efficient ways of accomplishing things, bugbear tinkerers become not totally crazy.
Right.
And things like that. Yeah, and then they're like, oh, they're not stupid or whatever. You know, you can start to just do, and then then fucking like clockwork, gear punk fucking bugbear, society. That'd be real fucking cool.
Right.
But yeah, just like throwing more random junk out here at this point. I'm trying to think of, but
More on the bogbears.
bugbears
Right.
though.
Think
right.
about this. You come across a pack of blue jean wearing bogbears on a raft,
Banjo
and they're sitting
playing.
around lazily with their banjos, and one of them pulls out and cracks open a cold bug light, which is actually brewed from Bowen's flowers.
I love it.
Good, yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Fucking bug.
Pug light. Oh my god. But yeah, and then so what would the bog bears, who would they worship? Like what, because like something like this group wouldn't worship like a chaos god. It would be more of a god of harvest or like a fertility kind of thing.
They would have turned. I think they would have turned their back on the Hruger.
Yes.
Whatever
would have changed.
I think maybe like the whole like Bowen's flowers is sort of like a 70s sort of like enlightenment for them.
Okay, all right.
And they sort
Oh
of
my God.
move on to something a little bit more transcendent.
They all sound like Northern California surfer dudes.
Secret
Jabra.
tunnel. Secret tunnel.
You gotta keep it. They keep that for the beach elves.
That's
what
yeah,
the
good
beach-
point. That's right. Of course. Sorry, foolish.
But yeah, no, I think they would probably follow ideals and like philosophies. Maybe they're like actually pretty good company, right?
Yeah.
It is.
As long as you don't step on their flowers, you know.
Oh,
Right.
right. Mind the
Give
flowers.
them some sort of like druidic,
Yeah.
you know, sort of tradition going on. That makes then they become almost more like elves, more
Mhm.
savage version of elves kind of thing.
Bigger.
Quote unquote. Yeah, bigger, meaner, scarier. And probably more combat driven still, I think,
Right.
as a general rule. But like, I mean, I don't know. There's elf war stuff if you look for it too. But yeah, you could like switch their this sort of like strength and ambush and whatever violence god into somebody that's more of like a protector of the home and hearth or something like that.
Yeah.
You could a vigilance sort of deity, Athena-esque or whatever. And then you could just switch the sort of sneaky stealth dude into more of like a guile or trade or law deity. That's something along the line if they're trading regularly, or if they're they have some sort of formalized organized society, or if they're just trying to I don't know, as a more mercurial aspect or something like that, to represent their kind of lazy side, more or less, the like Tom Sawyer element or whatever. Then you could you could switch that. There's minor tweaks that aren't total like abandonments of the original concept, uh, that are sort of a reasonable step or two away.
Like an evolution of.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, well, yeah, these guys got boxed into this place where they engaged in totally different behavior for maybe a couple generations. Of course, their rituals would change a little or something. You know what I mean? Like, that's
Right.
how normal societies like develop or whatever. D&D, they tend to not change for thousands
Right.
of years. But when you have actual physical gods walking around, that's a little more reasonable. Or,
Yeah. Or protecting. Yeah.
or races that live for like 1,000 years or something.
Right,
It's like, well,
right.
yeah, generation time is a century or is a millennium instead of a century. It's like, well, okay.
Hmm. Yes. That does make societies last a lot longer.
Mhm. Yeah, that's like if the boomers today were like 800 years old and are still going to be around for another 200. That's like the difference, I feel like.
Well, I think that that is all we've got today for Bugbears. I hope you've
Yeah.
learned something, maybe gotten a few ideas for things you could run for your own campaign. We are going to be doing another Table 13 next Thursday. It's probably not going to be this segment. I think it's going to be something more along the lines of rules or DM strategies.
I think
Are
we're going
we
to be
guest
looking at
next
doing
week?
this once. Yeah, we have a
Once
guest
a
next
month.
week.
Oh yeah, we have a
We're
guest
looking at
this week,
doing this
okay.
about once a month. So we'll be doing
Oh,
like
this is Thursday.
it'll be like one week of this, then 1 week of interviewing somebody, and then 2 weeks of our normal
More
garbage.
general rules
Yep.
related
I like
conversation.
garbage.
Yeah,
Garbage is
gosh.
a better description.
Yes.
Hot flaming.
But next
garbage.
week we will be having Kyle, who runs our Gods of Aether game, on the stream, and he'll be talking about his experiences DMing and sort of his process and all of that, bringing another perspective into the into our little zoo
Circle.
of perspectives.
Yes, our
zoo-
perspective zoo.
Yep.
Yes.
Again, thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for sparing us your ear and your time.
Yes. Yes.
Again, just the plugs, and I'm just going to power through them. Do this every week. We have a podcast that comes out on Friday. Comes out every other week after that. Comes out on Mondays for the patrons. We do a stream every other Monday. The next one will be on the 29th. And join our Discord and give us money.
Woohoo!
All of the money.
All of the money. So thank you,
Patron.
Wow.
Wow.
That one.
Well, I fucked it up. Patreon. We have one of those, and you don't have to give us money, but if
No.
you'd like to, you can.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us, and have yourselves a wonderful, wonderful evening.
Good night.